I'm Nate Carnes, Associate Director for the Center of Teaching Excellence since January 2018. Okay. I spent the last 22 years as a science teacher educator in the College of Education, specifically in the Department of Instruction and Teacher Education. Teaching is what gets me out of bed. I love teaching. I'm still studying it, so we're going to share a little bit with you, but before we get into that, I'm going to have my colleague, Yang, introduce herself.
My name is Wang. Originally, I'm from China, and I came to the United States in 2007 for my master's degree and then a Ph.D. in language literacy at University of Missouri. And as a doctoral student, I participated in a couple of co-teaching workshops, and I co-taught with my peers and some other doctoral students, and also with my mentor and some other faculty member. And when I joined USC here in 2014, unfortunately, I got to co-teach a couple of courses with my colleagues. And then last summer, very lucky again, Nate and I, we collaborated and co-teach a workshop for Chinese delegates from a medical university. So here's the definition of co-teaching. We'll give you a second to read it. So usually in the university setting, there will be two professors or two instructors co-teach one course. And the models I have used work with my peers, for example, my colleagues to co-teach, or work with other doctoral students, or work with my mentor, or work with my mentee.
Okay, and before we move on, why are we talking about co-teaching anyway? Why are we considering co-teaching in the first place? Well, one reason might be the Horizon 2017 report that was just published by EDUCAUSE. EDUCAUSE took over Horizon, is publishing a lot of that information. Okay, in that report, that report is mainly about the state of university teaching. The main focus in that report is that there is a need to adapt what we do in our teaching because what we have done is not as effective in different ways. And actually the report highlights bringing in education technology into our teaching more than we have in the past. Because for some of us, we didn't have the technology. How many of you are with me when I mentioned overhead projector? Okay. Overhead transparencies? Okay. Anybody know anything about thermofax? Thermofax machine? Opaque projector? Okay. Those are years ago. And actually, don't tell anybody, but I still have some overhead transparencies in my file cabinet that I'm going to have to transfer. But a lot of that has changed. Now we can do some things that are interactive, like smart boards, Promethean boards, and even those have changed since they first come out. Okay, I almost feel like a weatherman doing, the animations as I'm talking now. You can do that with the board. So that's in the report also. But also within that report is not only about the education technology that's now available that we should be using according to the study, but there are pedagogical strategies. And one of those pedagogical, I guess I should say one of the classes of pedagogical strategies is co-teaching. Okay, so we're going to move on to the different types of structure. I'm just going to scroll through these kind of quickly because we're going to get into the details you can see with the handout. So these are not the only co-teaching strategies, but they're ones that we're focusing on today. And so we'll get started with the first one. Okay.
The first model is one teach, one observe. So as it says, one teacher has primary instructional responsibility, while the other one can circle around or sit in one spot in a seat to make observations. And personally, I use this a few times. One is when I was still fresh in a doctoral program, I did my teaching internship. So I sat a lot in the classroom to do the observation while watching my mentor and my other colleagues teaching. And then I also do this with my doctoral students while my students is doing their teaching internship. And another time I used this model was when I just started here with the new course with junior faculty, the first semester. So for the first month, I sat back in the classroom and did a lot of observation. And then when I got to know more about the course, I started to interact more with the students.
Okay, and to add on, so I'm the tag along, as you can tell. And to add on to this, the focus observation can be even broader, because these strategies, and I'm glad you caught the 1995, these things have been done at the pre-college level for several years. That's the importance of the 1995. We at the university, we have not embraced these strategies as quickly, nor have they started with us. They've started with classroom teachers, one I used to be a part of. But the observation also can take place even among the students and all. And part of our context has been, we started co-teaching this past summer. And here's the context real quickly. I was invited to present a module to a group of visiting scholars from China, from a medical university. Okay, and as you heard, Yang introduced herself as coming from China. Actually, Yang, I forgot if you mentioned this or not, but she taught at a medical university as well. So here I'm saying, I was like, well, I do not have to use my physics to figure this out. Because I speak very little, very, very little Chinese. In fact, Yang is my tutor and was my tutor before this opportunity came along. So I was like, this makes perfect sense. And I happened to understand from people from last year that they had difficulty getting through the language lens. So I was like, well, we can fix this. And so Yang, knowing some of the pedagogical structures that we were going to deliver to them, and knowing the Chinese language, she, fortunately for me, said, yes, I would love to be a part of that. And so we sat down and started working together. And so what she did sometimes when I was teaching some of the pedagogical structures, and am I speaking too fast for y'all? Okay, but for Chinese, I am. Because they were first I thought, I was like, aren't these folks paying attention to me? Because I started thinking of some of my undergraduates, because they were, like that's like, oh, they're kind of like them. But Young helped me real quickly. He said, they're trying to keep up with you. Because they were trying to translate with an app, trying to keep up with me. And so I'm speaking like lightning speed fast. And here's Young observing. See, so this is where the one teach, one observe really helps. And that she's detecting different things. She's looking also at their faces and all. It's like they're struggling. And she said, Dr. Carnes, time out for a moment. And then so she translates enough to catch them up. But even in our classes, that may not be the case. But if you're doing the one teach, one observe, one can be observing the students using that formative assessment called teacher observation. And just looking around the room, I think many of us have been teaching long enough that you can pick up some things, like the speaker saying, okay, everybody understand? Everybody says yes. And you, the observer, says, no, they don't. They don't have it yet. And so that observant or the observer can then provide some feedbacks like, Dr. Wang, that they don't have it yet. Would you repeat that, or can you say it differently? Maybe they might even interject and say, maybe someone can put it in your own words then if you understand. Tell me. So this is where this can play a very important part. And as far as the teaching tip is concerned, it's about switching in a role. So this helps our university students understand that they have two instructors. Rather than this person over here, they're not standing over there for decoration or just for moral support, but they are playing a vital role also.
Yeah, so the two instructors can alternate, and one teaching, one observe. And the other way, I think that's still kind of observation, which is I kind of interact with the Chinese visiting scholars, because for many of them, they're like, oh, the instructor is up there, I don't want to raise up my hands and ask questions. So I kind of collected all their questions while I circled around, and then I brought all these questions, to, of course, to Nate.
Yes, yes. Okay, so then we go to one that's very familiar. I guess I'm going to follow Yang again on this one.
So this model is one teach, one assist. We kind of did that earlier in this session when Nate was talking here, and I kind of helped passing around the sign-up sheet so you can sign up the name. And there will be many other tasks happening in the classroom, which, for example, one instructor is leading a lecture and the other one can help answering students' questions and make sure the technology is working and also answer the questions. And also it works when the students are put into working in small groups, because one professor can make sure the flow of the class, and the other can still circle around or participate in small groups and assist in the students' work.
This is really important too when I don't know your content very well, but I know there are sometimes you might be using some statistical models, maybe, or something that the students are not catching on to very well. I said that kind of.
Can we get that example specific?
Yeah, yeah. So that one who's assisting can kind of help the individual along, or they're not keeping up. Let's say we do something like this that you're following on your laptops or your device, like students would be. Then someone would be guiding them. It's like, oh, the reason why you're probably having difficulties is you're on the wrong web page. They're up a little bit. It's this URL. Oh, now see that? Okay, go ahead and push that one.
Or how
Yeah.
put a comment in Padlet.
Yes. Yes. So this person can also help. I know a lot of times I have benefited from this also, having used co-teaching for a while. I actually came through a master's degree program where there was co-teaching, and the one person was for example, one was a physicist. I forget what his area was, but it had something. I think it was quantum physics, but he was talking about like the Newtonian physics, and then he shifted into quantum physics, and there's some different thinking between those two, which happens to be one of my babies. I guess that's why I'm using the example. But the one who was assisting was a classroom teacher, was a high school classroom teacher who was helping along, and he could speak the teacher language. In Yang's case, she could speak Chinese, I couldn't. And the master's degree case, the instructor, he was great, very knowledgeable, but he had some difficulty translating to what this would look like in our classrooms, because we were learning the content and how to teach at the same time. And so this was a perfect example in which this type of co-teaching could occur. I could see it happening in our profession here, in which some of the things we might be teaching, we might be decide to do this with a practitioner in the field to help them apply what we're teaching, to make sense of it, so they don't think oh, I got to get an A on the exam, check, and then off they go. But we can make things more meaningful. Okay? How are we doing? I don't want to overdwell too much, but okay. Then for the team teaching, okay, you want to take that or you want me? Okay, so for team teaching, the team teaching is a little more spontaneous. We talked about the one teach, one observe, and the teach, one assist. The team teaching is a more integrated model, and it's a more spontaneous one also, where both instructors, in this case, we're talking about 2 instructors, it could be 3. That gets, sometimes the management gets a little challenging when it's more than 2 or 3. That they kind of like move in and out. We're team teaching. We've demonstrated some of the team teaching already. Okay, so we actually demonstrate the first 3. The team teaching was, where Yang went over briefly the slide and added some things, and then how I annotated along. So we were actually doing some of the team teaching. Then the Chinese Institute, how many times did this happen? I think every time we met. So we were moving in and out. And so there were times, but she did talk with them in English as well. But then when it kind of got, the eyes start getting a little cloudy, then she says, well, this is what this means. Like, and I stood patiently, and I was like, yes, like I'm fully understanding, but it's like, I said, Young, it sounds like you're doing a good job.
Yeah, I just made something up. And when I co-taught with my colleague, she was a senior faculty and she has already retired now. It was a reading assessment course. And in this course, some of the parts like she would lead and some parts I led. And when we talked about there is a specific assessment tool, she and I, we both use this tool for different research purposes. That in that way, she brought in her perspectives as an elementary teacher educator, and I work a lot with middle school students and adults. So in that way, we gave students 2 different perspectives from different grade levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, I was thinking, well, Young was talking, and as we have planned in our script, is that in our classes, I imagine there are multiple perspectives on some of the things that we teach. And you might have a colleague who's more embedded or involved in one perspective, and you are in another. This is also a great opportunity for co-teaching as well. So you can elaborate on whatever model it is. And I said, well, there's a flip side to this, or there's a different one that's not diametrically opposed, it's just different. And so the students will then get the best of both, because both of you are well situated in whatever perspective you're presenting. And then when they ask questions, it's like 2 heads, 2 responders are better than 1. We have one more. But we'll talk about, this is a talking head kind of thing where we're not really demonstrating it, and we don't want to take the time to demonstrate right now, but we can elaborate on it. Okay? So in this case, co-instruction is happening. We divide, in our case, we would divide the class in half. And we even changed the furniture, especially in a space like this because it allows us to, is that we would divide in half, and one group will be facing this way. It might be with Yang, the other is facing toward the window, and you're with me. And instruction is happening at the same time, okay? And we're given information. It could be that we have taken something that's complex and divided it into 2 smaller chunks, and we're working with students simultaneously. And then what we will do is we'll switch, because I'm more schooled in one area and she's more schooled in the other area. Okay? And then what we will do, we will flip in our class meeting and go at it again. So the second group now is with me getting what the first group got from me, and same for her. Okay? But then at the end, we come back together with the 2 instructors, and we're now back together. So, all right, you've been exposed to the dichotomy. it might be, what questions do you have? Or it could be, all right, what do you know that you didn't know before? So we would have a general debriefing and so forth. And so that's a way of changing the instruction up and also allowing a little more individuality than it would be with just one group. By the way, I do know that this has been done with some of my biology colleagues at UNC, University of North Carolina. And just in case you're thinking about, well, how's this going to apply to me? They did this in a large setting where they had over 100 students, and that's what they did. The two of them taught, they divided the class up, and being in a room, I think it held 250, whatever, so it did allow some space. They taught, hey, and the students like, this is great, and I'm learning, and I feel like you're paying attention to me, and I'm not just a number. So, okay, so those are the structures. I'll leave it to Young to talk about the benefits, and then we're going to get back in our next slide. We're going to get at the planning question. Okay.
So one of the benefits is we can help students exposure to new or different pedagogical strategies, and especially with the parallel teaching, which Nate just explained. And the parallel, in doing that, the students will be grouped into smaller groups, and that helps with the students' interaction, with their engagement. Because from what I have experienced, the students, they always responded better in small groups. And in my course evaluation, they always mention the small group discussion is fabulous, we wanted to do more. And the other thing is with the different strategies. So for example, in my class, I would have students do some case studies. And with a small group, actually, I can give more feedback to individual students rather than a big group. And they really like this direct contact with a professor, give immediate feedback to their assignments. And of course, practice what is preached. It always takes a lot of practice. We don't come to this point just the 1 second. So for example, even today with this session, we met together and planned like multiple hours together, and then individually we spend a few hours to look up resources and think of our examples we wanted to share. And of course, two heads and eyes are better than one. So if one of us just present here today, you only hear one perspective. And especially from our working experience together, we got to show you and share with you what exactly we did and our struggles and excitement from working together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the citations that you see on the first two, those were people publishing about what they did with co-teaching at the university level, and this is what they gained. You know, and the first one, again, I've learned just since this summer, since we worked together, I've learned so much from Yang. And yeah, well, she's had me to rethink some things also, because even when we were planning, she said, do you mean this and this and this? I said, oh, yeah, in fact, that's a better way of saying it. You know, so I used to tease my students. Actually, it was kind of serious. I said, I always am very clear what I intended to say. So, but she kind of helps tease that out. And so these authors reported that's what they gained. And in the second one, as far as practice what is preached, I'm imagining in your professions, just like in mine, that some of our colleagues who are out in the business are probably promoting collaboration more and more. Is that true? You know, getting back to a comment that we made earlier, there are times in which I think it is good for students to hear informed debate. So, so with Young and I, and we can plan some of this because we've talked with each other enough, is that there are different perspectives that do not embrace the same kind of thing. And so we being more informed about those perspectives, we can have a dialogue in front of our students. We have an immediate opportunity here to say, whatever the public health issue is, well, this is the way to address it. You say, yeah, but here's another way of addressing it. And we have a banter that's collegial. We're doing lots of things. For example, one, where we're showing how to apply the knowledge that we're teaching. Number two, we're showing some important communication skills like argumentation, which is not like a fist fight out on the street, but there's an academic version of argumentation. This is what it looks like. This is how you set it up. This is how you advance your point. See how this goes. Or there are these two, and we're trying to drive the students' understanding deeper. They say, okay, now that we're going to pause our professional conversation here. Okay, where's your thinking? Why? What rationale can you give? So they're seeing this happen, which can be, if you choose, kind of like an alternative to reading extra pages. They can just experience it now. Okay, so I just want to say that.
And this works really well in graduate level courses because the graduate students can really see different perspectives, different voices, and it doesn't mean we need to go against with each other. They just got to hear different aspects.
Yeah, it does frustrate some students because exactly what is the right answer? What do you want me to say to you when you ask me the question? All right, Yang had mentioned, do you want to say any more about our planning, like for the Chinese Institute?
So for the Chinese Institute, that workshop, Nate and I, we got together, I don't even remember how many times. We started, the Institute was last summer, and I think we started early in spring. And then again in summer, and at first, like, we kind of, so what are we gonna do? And kind of brainstorming, and then narrow it down, and then we got a big structure for every day, but still we're like, oh, we haven't met them yet. We really don't know their background knowledge and what they wanted to learn. So we planned in advance, and also every day before the workshop, we got together and kind of planned quickly, went over the agenda, and right after the workshop, we met, we stayed in the classroom for a little bit longer and talked about how did we do today, what we can adjust for the next day. And the workshop was a week every day, so that helped us really put our heads together and think about that. And this may work a little bit differently if it's a semester-long course. If it's a semester-long course, then you have more time to really debrief and think about that. And for us, we will just get the ball rolling. Okay, let's do it, let's do that. And for this workshop today, it's about 1 hour, and we got together maybe 3 times, 3 to 4 hours, and then a few hours extra. And then we did some debriefing. We practiced once, Wednesday at CTE, a real practice. Yeah. And then we debriefed, and then here is it today. And then at our workshop the first day, sometimes, some moments we were like looking at, okay, what's next?
Yeah. So isn't it your turn?
Yeah.
No, I think it's your turn. Oh.
Yeah. So it took some time for us to get here. We can fill in each other's sentences and provide more feedback to this.
Yeah, and you know, this might sound hopefully not too touchy-feely, but you do have to, I would say you have to like each other, but you have to be collegial. It has to be collegial, there has to be buy-in, you know, because students can detect almost everything. But like Yang was saying, we thought we had some things down. It wasn't because we did not plan, it was because there were some things that came up that we did not plan for. And then it's like, now what? I didn't think of that one, and she didn't think of it either, so it's like, okay, but we had spent time enough planning that we were able to do some nonverbal cues that were very subtle to get us through. The students actually, or the professionals from China, they actually remarked that there was no hitch. And we kind of looked at each other like, because some things we like, this one we're going to have to do on the fly. But we had spent enough time that we knew about some alternatives. So the planning it goes back to, you know, that saying, he or she who fails to plan, plans to fail. That will really come out. So this is not necessarily like an easier way to do things. And I'm convinced myself that to be excellent is not necessarily to take the easy route. That's why I preach to my students. Sometimes, you know, in fact, the way I teach, I mean, I was like, why am I spending so much time? And it's because I'm passionate about what I do and how I want students to learn. I'm willing to invest it. And generally it pays back. So the same thing is with the co-planning. With the co-planning, all this isn't necessarily out there, but you have to think about, what is it that we're going to deliver? Does it lend itself to co-teaching? Because some things, it's not necessary really to do it, but it could be. So we have to consider the content. We have to consider each other. You know, for example, in this setting here, we didn't think it made much sense for someone, either one of us, just to stand up here and talk to you about co-planning. We felt that we should do it together because it's about co. And so we have to, it's very important in the planning is like, what do we want the students, the audience to get out of this? Okay, how are we going to get them there? How will we tell that they have been there? That helps determine what our roles are going to be as well. So all that goes into it. But then again, this is an overview, so we're kind of not getting down real in the deep roots of the grass, but it's very important. Then we we plan what structures are we going to use. We do that in co-teaching. Then, as Yang said, we'll be debriefing actually after this. So she'll say, so how do you think it went? I'll ask her the same thing. Well, if we do this again with them, would we do anything different? Why? Why not?
And it also takes relationship. Like before, Nate and I, we worked together on the workshop. I'm kind of middle-level education person, and Nate always asks, oh, we want you to teach something for our program. And I always want to work with him. So when he brought this up, this is perfect. I wanted to do this workshop with you. And yeah, through the process, and we got to know each other better, or like our teaching styles, how we interact with the students, and what kind of instructional strategies we prefer. So it really takes time, and it's a relationship between the two instructors and also with the students. The students, that's the center of the classroom. And from the first point, we put the students at the center with the Chinese visiting scholars, so how we can make sure they are learning something from both of us.
Yeah, and I mean, and basically where we stand, all of us, you know, I was just listening to Yang during some of our co-playing sessions, and she would say, well, you know, in my class, I do this and this. And I said, oh, that's a good idea. I think I want to do that in my other class. And also, she probably hasn't thought about this as well as I have, but I've been thinking about this because there's some publications I see us now doing that we will be co-authoring on some publications because of some of the things that we use and maybe some things that we didn't, but some of the things that came up in our planning. I said, that's seed for article. And I just happened to scan, do a very quick literature review, and I don't find this anywhere, and I think everybody else needs to know about this. So not only for the co-teaching, but this can sprout into co-publishing. It can sprout into co-service kinds of things. So, yeah.
From my experience, I did 2 co-teaching courses for my first semester working here, and there was one course. It was on-site at an elementary school with we taught graduated students. My colleague and I, we didn't actually plan strictly as the models. We kind of just went over, okay, so today it's just the first month, and I got to know the university, and the other factor was I was pregnant at that time. So the first month I did a lot of observation and also assistance, and then I had my daughter in October. So when I was out for that 3 weeks, the other instructor, she led the course. And then after that,
She's amazing. She's amazing.
It happened the fourth week, she had to go to a conference, so someone had to be there. So I thought, okay, I'll come back, and I went back with my daughter. But yeah, we had a lot of fun. So anyway, so it worked out. We kind of have different structures. We didn't plan all these structures. So kind of in the beginning, one teach, one observe, and one teach, one assist, and then each of us, we took lead on the courses, and toward the end, we kind of do the team teaching all together, because by that time, I got to know the course, the content, and got to know the students. And at the end, we did some parallel teaching when the students were working on their case studies. So we didn't plan the structure, but I think we kind of did that just with the pace.
I think I can say this about both of us. We have very small egos. And so I was like, well, whatever gets the job done. So if they go to Yang, okay. And a lot of the Chinese people went to her, and it's like, to me, I was like, that makes sense. Yeah, so we have to think out. I think it's also this move of moving beyond silos that we, using we loosely, in the profession have allowed. We have to go beyond that.
And for me and my colleague, since we taught a small group class, we had 16 students. So both of us, we did grading. The students have feedback from 2 professors, and in the Word document, my colleague used the yellow highlighter, I used the blue one, so the students can always tell this is the feedback from Dr. DeFord, this is feedback from Dr. Yang.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we really have used up a great deal of our time. On the other side is just a summary of what we talked about. Whereas if we had more time, we have to cut short because of what's coming down, what's going to, the next activity coming in. But we would like for you to think about what structure, where opportunities might exist for you to use some of these structures. I would say as we do this, we should keep in mind that co-teaching may not be all semester long. It could be a particular class, or maybe a few classes. Whatever, as it was said, I think Lee said this earlier, you have to consider the content of what we're going to try to achieve. So it could look differently and under different circumstances. Okay? I mean, I know Yang and I, we will be very interested that if you implement any of this, we would want to know how things went and learn from your experiences. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, we would love to collect your evaluations, use it to get better, and CTE is looking for them as well. So, yeah, thank you so much.